Zaire's crayon paused mid-stroke. He looked up from the paper airplane he was sketching on the lobby bench. Grey eyes blinked curiously at the tall man standing just a few feet away, holding a coffee he'd stopped sipping. The man froze. Knox Vance hadn't meant to stop. He was on his way to a closed-door panel. He barely registered the hum of conversation around him. But something about the boy sitting alone with a box of crayons made his chest tighten. The boy tilted his head, exactly the way Knox did when he was studying a problem. Same stillness, same stare. Knox took one small step forward. "What's your name, little man?" The child didn't hesitate. "Zaire." Knox blinked. His fingers stiffened around the coffee cup. The name didn't just land, it hit. Zaire. Jania's voice echoed in his memory, the one night she'd dared to tell him what she'd name a son someday. Something strong, like Zaire. It means river, and rivers always find their way. That night in New York had come back to haunt him more than once, but he never thought it would return like this. Not in the form of a boy with his jawline, his left-handed grip, and those unmistakable grey eyes. Behind the boy, a woman stepped out of the shadows. Hair pulled back, chin high, blue dress, silent as always, but this time not invisible. Jania, his former assistant, the one woman he couldn't control. The one woman he'd let go without warning, without apology, and without understanding why it felt wrong for months after. Her eyes didn't flinch when he looked at her. She didn't rush to explain. She didn't need to. He already knew, and that terrified him. 2 rows behind them, tech interns chatted about panel logistics. Coffee machines hissed. Glass doors opened and closed. No one noticed the war waging in Knox Vance's chest. He turned back to Zaire. "Do you like airplanes?" Knox asked, his voice low, careful. Zaire nodded. "I want to fly real ones, but Mama says I have to learn math first." He smiled, that same dry, smart edge he carried at that age. Knox crouched down slowly. "Your Mama sounds smart." "She is." He didn't ask the question that sat heavy on his tongue. He didn't have to. Everything in Zaire's face was an echo, a memory, a quiet truth screaming louder than anything else in the room. Jania stepped forward, calm, collected. Her voice was steady. "We should go." Knox stood, lips parting. "Can we talk?" A pause. Her eyes searched his face, not for feelings, for sincerity. She nodded once. "After your panel. Suite 1810. No press." He nodded. "Thank you." But she was already guiding Zaire away, hand gently resting on his shoulder, her spine straight as steel. Knox stood in place long after they disappeared down the hallway. His chest was tight. Not with panic, with clarity. He had erased her, and life, in the cruelest and clearest of ways, had brought her back, not for drama, but for truth. Have you ever locked eyes with someone and realized your past never really left? What would you do if the truth stared back at you, in the face of a child? Comment below if you've ever carried a truth in silence. And if this moment hit you, tap like, share, and subscribe. The story is only getting started. Jania Brooks had never stepped inside a building with marble floors before. She'd seen them in movies. Polished, spotless, echoing the heels of important people who made decisions with pens and closed doors. But never in real life. Until now. Laurent Holdings' Atlanta headquarters towered above her like it knew she didn't belong. 45 stories of glass, steel, and silence. She adjusted the second-hand blazer she borrowed from her cousin and clutched her worn leather portfolio like it was armor. "Miss Brooks?" The receptionist's voice was professional, sharp. "Yes." She straightened. "Mr. Drayton in HR will see you now." She followed the woman past white walls and hushed conversations. No one looked up. No one smiled. That alone told her how serious the place was. The HR office was minimal, cold, a chrome desk and framed certificates. Mr. Drayton looked up and gave her a quick once-over before nodding to the chair. "You're here for the executive assistant opening." "Yes, sir." You're aware this is a personal assistant role to the CEO, not a standard admin post? Yes, sir. And that it includes travel, long hours, confidentiality, and direct access to Mr. Vance? Jania hesitated only slightly. I'm prepared. He raised an eyebrow. You've got good references from Emory's Community College and 3 part-time jobs, all customer service. Why apply here? She met his eyes. Because I don't plan to stay at the bottom of the ladder. He studied her a moment longer. Then he leaned back and folded his hands. Knox Vance didn't usually review his own assistant candidates. He had too much on his plate. But something about her name stuck. Brooks. He remembered it from an internal file. Someone who used to cover weekend logistics for his events team. Always on time. Quiet. 0 complaints. He pulled up her resume on his tablet. Community college. No 4-year degree. 3 part-time jobs. But her supervisor's remarks were nearly identical. A. She listens more than she talks. That's rare. I never had to repeat instructions. Fast learner. DIE doesn't ask for praise, but earns it anyway. He slid the file into his consider folder. Jania was shocked when the offer came in that same afternoon. She would be starting as the personal assistant to Knox Vance, founder and CEO of Laurent Holdings. The contract included travel, a non-disclosure agreement, and a base salary she had to reread twice to believe. She signed it before the email even loaded fully. Her aunt didn't understand. You're going to be traveling with some rich man you don't know? She asked over dinner. Jania simply replied, It's not about the man. It's about the door this job opens. Still, the first morning she walked through the executive wing, she felt like an intruder in someone else's dream. Everyone wore tailored suits, spoke in clipped phrases, and walked like they owned time. She didn't own much, except discipline, and that, she soon learned, was her greatest strength. Knox Vance wasn't cruel, but he wasn't kind either. He was quiet, calculated. When he entered a room, it shifted. Conversations softened. People stood straighter. He never yelled. He didn't need to. Jania stayed out of his way. She memorized his schedule within a week, anticipated his needs before he voiced them, knew when he wanted a black coffee with 2 drops of almond milk, and when he needed 10 uninterrupted minutes before a board call. She didn't ask personal questions, didn't giggle, didn't flirt. That alone set her apart. Most women in the office either feared Knox or tried to win his attention with high heels and lip gloss. Jania wore modest flats and took notes in silence. At first, he barely acknowledged her beyond clipped nods and thank you. But by week 3, she noticed something. He stopped rereading his own itinerary. He trusted hers. One late evening, after a 12-hour stretch managing a chaotic investment tour, she caught him watching her while she packed up files in the conference room. Not in a creepy way, more like assessing. You don't say much, he noted. She blinked. Didn't know I was supposed to. He tilted his head. You're not. But most people fill silence. She zipped her bag slowly. Maybe they're afraid of it. He didn't respond, but something flickered in his eyes. From that moment on, something shifted. Over the next few weeks, she traveled with him twice. Once to Dallas, once to Phoenix. Always professional. Always efficient. He'd started asking questions in the car. How did you get into marketing logistics? What's your end goal? Who raised you? She answered plainly. No sob stories. No emotional leverage. Just truth. My aunt. I lost both parents at 13. She took me in. I helped raise her youngest while working nights. He didn't react. But later that night, she noticed his flight preferences had been altered. She now flew in first class instead of economy. No one said anything. He never explained, and she never asked. Despite her own rules, Jania started noticing things about him. Knox Vance didn't drink alcohol. He worked through lunch. He always kept an unopened envelope in the inside pocket of his suit jacket. She assumed it was something personal because he never removed it, not even at TSA checks. He treated everyone with distant politeness, but never warmth. Once, When an investor asked about his family, he shut down the conversation with a flat that's irrelevant. Whatever made him who he was, it was buried deep. And she respected that. She had her own layers too. The whispers started about a month into her employment. Careful around Vance. He's known to mix business and she's too quiet. That's probably why he likes her. He only keeps assistants he can control. She ignored them. Her job was to perform, not to perform for people. And she was damn good at it. Knox Vance never commented on the gossip, but he did one thing that made her pause. When she brought his lunch to the boardroom one afternoon, he didn't take it immediately. Instead, he looked up from his screen and asked, "Do you trust easily?" She blinked, thrown off. "No." "Good," he said simply, and returned to his laptop. The next day, she was on a plane to New York for a quarterly summit. The forecast showed heavy storms. Her gut said something else was coming too. She just didn't know what, not yet. The flight to New York was quiet, private jet, no turbulence, just clouds outside and silence inside. Janiyah sat across from Knox at the small conference table, flipping through the agenda for the summit. He wasn't looking at her. He hadn't said much since they boarded, just nodded a thank you when she handed him the annotated files and closed his laptop after reviewing them in silence. She didn't mind the quiet. She never did. But this time, something felt different, weighted. Knox leaned back, eyes closed for a moment, as if the air itself was too heavy. "You ever been to New York?" he asked, voice low. "Once," she replied. "When I was 12. Field trip. Statue of Liberty and Times Square." He opened his eyes, just barely. "What'd you think?" "Crowded, fast, loud. It smelled like hot dogs and ambition." That made his mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, but close. "I hated it the first time too," he admitted. "Felt like everyone was performing all the time." She glanced at him. "Isn't that the job?" He looked at her then, really looked, maybe. But some people never take the costume off. They landed at Teterboro, under darkening skies. Their car was waiting, a black SUV that whisked them straight to the hotel. The summit was scheduled for the next day. Tonight, there was a dinner with a few select investors. Small talk, champagne, surface-level charm. Knox usually loathed events like these. She knew that from reading his notes. He preferred data over smiles, performance over praise. The social side of business was a performance he never fully bought into, but this one mattered. The company was on the verge of merging with a media tech giant. The relationships had to be smooth. Optics, polished. Presence, consistent. She knew her role. Keep him on time, intercept nonsense, and stay invisible. And she did that well, until the thunderstorm rolled in. By 7:30 p.m., half the investors had cancelled due to flight delays and flooding. The rooftop dinner was scrapped. Only Knox, Janiyah, and 2 others remained in the private lounge on the 42nd floor. By 8:10, the others had excused themselves. The room emptied. Rain slammed against the glass walls. Lightning flickered in the distance. Janiyah gathered the folders into her tote. "I'll head back to my room then." Knox didn't answer right away. She turned to leave. "Stay." It wasn't a command. It was a request, a quiet one, vulnerable even. She hesitated, then returned to the couch opposite him. He didn't look at her when he said it. "You know why I hired you?" She raised an eyebrow. "I assumed it was because I'm efficient." "That's part of it." Silence. She waited. "I watch people," he said finally. "It's how I built everything. I watch how they chase me, how they offer things with expectations, fake kindness, strategic compliments. You were the first one who didn't want anything from me." She blinked. "That's not true." He looked up. "No? I wanted an opportunity. I just didn't want to sleep my way to one." Knox leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped. "And I respected that." His voice had dropped. The storm outside cracked louder now. Inside, the space felt too still. Janiyah stood. "I should go." "Why?" She looked at him. "Because this feels like a line is being crossed." Knox stood too. "No line," he said quietly. "Just honesty." They stood inches apart now. She could see the tired under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the part of him no one else at the office ever saw. He was the richest man in the room, every room, and yet somehow still looked like he hadn't exhaled in years. "You've built a wall around yourself," she whispered. He didn't deny it. And then he said the words that would change everything. "Loyalty is rare." She swallowed. "So is being seen." Their eyes held. He stepped forward. The kiss was slow, measured, like a man calculating risk and deciding to take it anyway. She didn't stop it. She didn't want to. They didn't speak the next morning. Not beyond logistics. Flight details, investor notes, the driver's arrival. He didn't avoid her. But he didn't acknowledge what happened either. That hurt more than she expected. By the time they landed back in Atlanta, she knew. It had never been personal to him, only temporary. Disposable. The silence continued at work. He didn't fire her, didn't change her schedule, but something shifted. He stopped asking personal questions. He stopped looking. And 1 week later, an HR memo landed in her inbox. "Effective Monday, your position will be reallocated to the logistics division, basement level 2. Please report to Supervisor Danforth for reassignment." No explanation, no warning. She didn't cry. She just packed her desk in silence, like she had done everything else in that building. And when she left the top floor for the last time, no one looked up. Not even him. The air in the basement office was stale, dim lighting, a broken printer, walls that hadn't seen fresh paint in years. It wasn't demotion, not on paper. Her salary stayed the same. No formal warnings, no write-ups. Just a departmental restructuring. But Janiyah knew exactly what it was. A quiet dismissal wrapped in courtesy. Her new supervisor, Mr. Danforth, greeted her with a quick handshake and no eye contact. "You'll help coordinate vendor scheduling and file inventory updates." Not glamorous, but we move a lot of pieces down here. She nodded. He added, "I don't know what you did upstairs, but word is, you're fast and clean. Just keep your head down, and we won't have problems." She kept her head down. For 3 weeks, no contact from Knox. No email, no meeting, no message. Her security badge still worked. She could still see his name on the 45th floor panel when the elevator doors opened during shared rides. But he never got on. She once caught a glimpse of him from a distance in the lobby. He walked by with 2 senior partners. Sharp suit, no expression. He didn't glance her way. The rumors didn't take long. "I heard she got too close." "He has a pattern." Same thing happened to the girl before her. Quiet ones don't last. Janiyah ignored them, until her stomach started turning. First it was nausea after lunch. Then it was skipped periods. Then it was the realization she hadn't bought a test because deep down she already knew. She stood in the bathroom of a Kroger store off Auburn Avenue. Her heart pounded as the pink line appeared before the second minute even finished ticking. Pregnant. She leaned her back against the stall door. The noise of women entering and leaving didn't register. Her mind had already taken her somewhere else. She considered calling him. Knox had every resource, every connection, every ability to handle something like this. But her pride wouldn't let her. He had erased her without blinking. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of thinking she needed anything else from him. She chose instead to disappear. She turned in her badge a week later with a quiet resignation email. "Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the experience. I'm moving back to Augusta to support my family." No response came. She didn't expect one. Back in Augusta, the pace was slower. Life moved in rhythms of morning buses, after-school chatter, and Dollar General checkout lines. Her aunt took one look at her pale skin and knew something was wrong. Janiyah didn't lie, but she didn't share much either. "Who's the father?" Janiyah had only said, "Someone who doesn't need to know." Her aunt didn't push. Instead, she made space, cleared out the back room, gave her meals, warm towels, and silence. Sometimes, silence is the deepest form of love. Janiyah found work 2 months later at a local print shop and later picked up a remote gig helping small businesses run email marketing campaigns. She took online business courses at night, watched tutorials with one hand while rubbing her growing belly with the other. She didn't dwell on the past. She was too busy building a future. The baby kicked often, restless, strong. Boy. She named him Zaire before he was born. She didn't need a sonogram to decide. It was the name that stayed with her after that night in New York. She remembered the word Knox had used that evening. Loyalty is rare. But so was the kind of strength it took to walk away. Zaire arrived on a Thursday night in early spring. 10 fingers, 10 toes. Quiet, alert, a full head of black curls and a pair of grey eyes that stared straight at her like they already understood everything. She cried when she held him, not because of fear, but because the child in her arms didn't feel like a mistake. He felt like a new beginning. The early days of motherhood weren't soft. Janiyah learned quickly that love and exhaustion could live in the same breath. That a smile from Zaire could carry her through a sleepless night. That bouncing a baby with one hand while replying to client emails with the other was a rhythm she had no choice but to master. She didn't have a nursery, just a small corner in her aunt's back room, crib wedged between a dresser and a space heater. No designer diaper bags or organic formula. But she had clean bottles, hand-me-down onesies, and a spreadsheet of every penny she earned. And Zaire had everything he needed. He didn't cry much. He watched more than he whined. His eyes, that same clear grey, stayed fixed on her like he understood more than most babies should. At first, it scared her, that constant reminder of who he looked like. But in time, it comforted her. Because in Zaire's face, she found strength. Not a shadow of the past, but a reason to rise above it. When Zaire turned 1, she launched her own freelance page offering content services for small businesses. She wrote newsletters, social captions, and ad copy for mom-and-pop shops that couldn't afford big agencies. She charged less than she deserved, delivered more than they expected. Word spread. Within 6 months, she had 4 regular clients and enough income to move into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment above a hardware store. No elevator, no central heat, but it was hers. She bought a thrifted office chair and used milk crates as shelves. Zaire's crib sat in the corner of the living room, and his toys were scattered like confetti. They had a routine: wake, work, feed, nap, hustle, hug, repeat. She didn't talk about Knox, not to her aunt, not to her friends, not to herself. He became a silence she buried under progress. But every so often, when Zaire furrowed his brow or shifted his mouth, mid-thought, the resemblance would sneak back in like a whisper. He's his father's son, but Janiyah reminded herself daily, he's mine first. By the time Zaire turned 4, Janiyah's portfolio was full of client testimonials. She had built logos, led campaigns, and even helped a black-owned haircare brand hit their first UA 10K month. One of her clients, an older woman named Miss Bernice, who ran a small spice company, encouraged her to apply for the Georgia Women in Business grant. Janiyah laughed it off at first. That's for people with press kits and LLCs. Miss Bernice shook her head. You have grit, receipts, and results. That's a business. Go apply. So she did. One night, after putting Zaire to sleep, she filled out the application with trembling fingers and no expectations. 3 months later, a letter came in the mail. She read it 3 times. She had won. The prize was more than just money. It was exposure. The award included a 6-month mentorship with a national tech firm that supported underrepresented founders. They called it a growth accelerator. The company? Laurent Holdings. At first, she thought it was a joke. She read the name again. Same font. Same logo. Same man. Her hand trembled as she set the paper down. She didn't sleep that night. What were the odds? All the progress. All the healing. And now she was being led right back to the place that broke her. She stared at Zaire as he slept, knees pulled up, thumb tucked under his cheek. She whispered, "What would you want me to do, baby?" He didn't answer, but she knew. She couldn't keep shrinking just because the past made her uncomfortable. This wasn't about Knox. It was about legacy. The summit was in Charlotte. She packed 2 outfits, a modest navy dress, and a power suit she borrowed from her cousin. Her hair in soft curls. Light makeup, nothing flashy. Zaire kissed her cheek before she left. "You gonna win, Mama?" She smiled. "I already did." When she arrived at the hotel conference center, the air was electric, full of handshakes, fast-talking innovators, and corporate jargon. She felt underdressed, out of place, but she didn't flinch, because she wasn't the same girl who walked into Laurent Holdings at 24, hoping someone would believe in her. She had built something, alone, and no one could take that from her. She found her seat near the back of the ballroom, program in hand, nerves steeled behind a calm smile. Panel 1. Workshop 2. Lunch, then the mentorship pairing. She breathed through every hour. Until 1:10 p.m., when the door opened during the main panel. And Knox Vance walked in. Knox Vance didn't do panels. Everyone in the corporate world knew that. He preferred quiet boardrooms, quarterly memos, and carefully written statements. But there he was, walking in 10 minutes late like the room owed him time. People adjusted in their seats, phones tilted slightly, pretending not to take pictures. Whispers hushed but never stopped. He walked with the same precision Janiyah remembered, fast, focused, untouchable. Except this time, he didn't walk past her. He paused, 3 steps from the row where she sat, nose buried in her notes, pretending not to feel his shadow stretch over her. She looked up. His jaw tightened. She gave the smallest nod. Cool, polite, nothing more. And just like that, he moved on. But not before she saw it. Recognition. And something else. Regret? No. That would require admission, and Knox Vance didn't admit. The rest of the panel passed in a blur. Janiyah heard words, pitch readiness, equity retention, digital scalability, but they slid past her like oil on glass. Her heart thudded beneath her blouse like it remembered pain more clearly than her mind did. She hadn't seen him in over 4 years. Not since the morning after that night in New York. Not since the HR email. Not since she'd stared at a test strip with shaking hands in a grocery store bathroom stall. She had imagined this reunion 1,000 times. None of those versions included her sitting 2 rows behind him with a name tag that read, Janiyah Brooks, A. Brooks, Digital Strategy. None of them included her sitting there not as his assistant, but as his equal. During the lunch break, she avoided the main dining hall. Too many eyes. Too much noise. Instead, she grabbed a to-go box and found a quiet spot on the balcony overlooking the city skyline. She hadn't even opened the lid when she heard footsteps behind her. She knew who it was before he spoke. Didn't expect to see you here. She took a slow breath and turned. Knox stood with both hands in his pockets, eyes unreadable. Her voice came steady. I could say the same. Mentorship initiative wasn't my idea, he said quickly. I signed off, but I don't pick participants. She gave a dry smile. That sounds like something a man says when he's surprised to see the consequences of his past. He blinked, not flinching, just registering. I didn't mean for things to end the way they did. Right, you just made sure they did. The wind swept between them, sharp and honest. He stepped forward, Janaya, don't. Her eyes locked on his. Let's not do the half-apology thing. You wanted me gone, so I left. He exhaled, long and quiet. You didn't return my calls. You never made one. Silence. Then you disappeared. She stared at him. So did you. He sat down beside her. Not too close, not imposing. She hated that her heart still skipped when he was near. He hadn't changed much. Same trimmed beard, same smooth voice, but there were tired lines around his eyes now, a tightness in his shoulders. Like time had chipped at something inside. She finally opened her lunch and poked at the grilled chicken with a plastic fork. He watched her a moment. You're running your own firm? She nodded. Freelance. Built it up while raising my son. That landed heavy. She watched him shift slightly. He didn't speak, didn't ask, just nodded, lips pressed. She didn't give him the satisfaction of easing the moment. If he wanted the truth, he'd have to earn it. That afternoon, she returned to the ballroom for the mentor pairings. Her badge beeped green as she walked in, and the screen on stage listed the names. Group 3, Knox Vance, Brooks Digital Strategy. She didn't blink, didn't sigh. Just walked to the table marked with the number 3 and took her seat. 10 minutes later, he sat across from her again. They were alone. She reached for her notepad. So, what will this mentorship look like? Weekly check-ins? Resource sharing? He leaned forward. You're still angry. She looked up, calm. No, Knox. I'm not angry. A pause. I'm just not the same woman you ignored. After the final session that day, she gathered her notes and started toward the elevator. She was halfway across the lobby when her phone buzzed. A text from her sitter. Emergency. Car broke down. Can't make it tomorrow. I'm so sorry. Her stomach twisted. The final day was important, not just because of the exposure, but because each mentee would present a 2-minute pitch in front of top investors. Zaire couldn't be left home alone. She sighed. Backup plan, bring him with her. Quietly. Keep him tucked at the back with his tablet. She'd done harder things. The next morning, Zaire tugged at his clean shirt with a pout. I don't like these pants. They make you look sharp. Sharp like a sword. She smiled. Exactly. He beamed. They arrived early. She set him up on a bench in the lobby with coloring sheets, headphones, and a juice box. Don't talk to strangers, she reminded him. I'm not a baby, Mama. She bent to kiss his forehead. I know. She was halfway through her prep notes when a hush fell over the lobby. Knox stepped out of the elevator. He walked toward the exit. Fast, focused, until his eyes landed on Zaire. And the world stopped. Zaire didn't look up at first. He was focused, scribbling deep blue lines across a sketch of an airplane cockpit, tongue sticking out the side of his mouth. Knox stood still, frozen halfway between the door and his past. It wasn't the drawing that caught him. It was the child's posture, the left-handed grip on the crayon, the precise angle of his elbow, the way his lips pinched when he concentrated. Knox had done the same at that age. Same furrowed brow, same quiet focus. Zaire looked up, like he felt eyes on him. Their gazes locked, grey to grey. Time folded in on itself. Knox stepped forward slowly, like the floor might give way. You drawing planes? He asked, his voice softer than Janaya had ever heard it. Zaire blinked, surprised but not shy. Yep, nice detail on the wings. Thanks. Mama says I draw better when I don't rush. Knox crouched down, his knees creaking slightly under the weight of something heavier than age. What's your name? Zaire. Knox's throat worked. He glanced at the name tag clipped to the boy's backpack. It read exactly that, Zaire Brooks. No middle name. No last-minute clue. But he didn't need one. The boy had his eyes. His entire face was a younger mirror of Knox's own reflection. Across the lobby, Janaya turned the corner with a tablet in hand and stopped cold. Her breath hitched. They were face to face. Zaire, calm as ever. Knox, visibly shaken. She walked up, slow but steady. Zaire pointed without looking. "Mama, this man knows about airplanes." Knox stood, clearing his throat. "We were just talking." "I can see that." Her voice didn't waver, but her chest burned. Knox turned to her. "He's yours?" "Yes." His eyes searched her face. "But he's also—" She met his gaze squarely. "Yes." He stepped back slightly, chest rising. "And you never told me. You never asked." He blinked. She kept going. "You disappeared. Erased me. Assigned me to a basement without a single word. What exactly did you expect me to do? I didn't think—" "Exactly." Her voice was steel. "You didn't think. You dismissed. And I picked up the pieces." Knox didn't try to defend himself. Not this time. His eyes fell back to Zaire, who was now coloring again, headphones on, humming a soft tune. He said quietly, "He has my eyes. He has your focus, your stubbornness, and your stillness." Knox looked down. "How old?" "4." He swallowed. "Born?" "Spring after New York." "So do the math." Silence sat between them again. She continued, "I didn't tell anyone, not even my aunt. I didn't want pity. I didn't want drama." She paused. "I wanted peace." Knox nodded slowly, processing. "I want to talk, really talk." "I figured you might," she said, "but not here, not in front of him." He nodded again. "After the pitch session?" She hesitated. "Suite 1810. But only after I finish what I came here to do. I'll be there." Janiyah returned to her seat, heart pounding. Zaire didn't say much, just leaned into her side, his fingers still smudged with blue crayon. "Mama, he looks like me." She kissed the top of his head. "Yes, baby. I know." The pitch session passed in a blur. She spoke with confidence, laying out her model, her strategy, and her growth metrics. Investors nodded. One took notes. Another requested her deck by email. She walked off that stage knowing she had done everything right, but her heart wasn't in the room anymore. It was upstairs, waiting. Suite 1810 was minimalist, modern, and quiet. She knocked once before letting herself in. Knox stood by the window, blazer off, sleeves rolled, hands in his pockets. "I almost didn't come," she said. "I wouldn't have blamed you." She walked to the table and sat. He turned. "He's brilliant. You can tell already." She nodded. "He is. And happy. He doesn't know pain." That was the goal. Knox sat across from her. "I want to be in his life." She looked at him. Unreadable. "No PR, no headlines, no drama," he added. She kept staring. "I want to earn it, whatever that looks like." Her voice was quiet. "You think because you showed up for one conversation, you're ready to be a father?" "No," he said honestly. "But I'm ready to start trying." A pause. Janiyah looked away, then back at him. "Okay, but my rules—" "Say them." "No legal claims, no surprise visits, supervised time only. No pictures. No gifts he didn't ask for." He nodded after each one. "I agree. And if you disappear again, I won't." Something in his voice broke through her guard. Just a crack. Enough to let hope whisper. "What would you do if the man who broke you wanted to be part of what you rebuilt? Would you let him in? Or protect the peace you fought for? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories. Knox didn't show up the next day. He showed up the one after that. Sunday morning. Augusta. No assistants. No car service. Just Knox in a plain polo and jeans, standing outside the hardware store below Janiyah's apartment, holding a small bag of crayons and a nervous look that didn't belong to a man worth 9 figures. Janiyah saw him from the window before the knock came. Zaire was still asleep. She quietly stepped out, pulling the door shut behind her. "You're early," she said. I wasn't sure what time felt appropriate. She crossed her arms. This isn't a weekend project, Knox. I know. She studied him. No cologne. No watch. His phone wasn't even in his hand. That was new. 15 minutes, she said. He's waking up slow today. He nodded. Thank you. Zaire blinked when she gently shook his shoulder. Someone's here, she whispered. He yawned. Is it Miss Bernice? No, someone else. You remember the man from the hotel lobby? Zaire sat up slowly. The plain guy. She smiled. Yes. He smiled too. Can I show him my spaceship drawings? She paused, then nodded. Knox sat at the little kitchen table, knees tucked awkwardly under its narrow width. Zaire climbed onto the chair across from him with a spiral notebook in hand. This one's a rescue ship, Zaire said. It flies real fast like Zoom, but also has snacks. That's important. Knox leaned forward. Smart. Snacks are key to morale. Zaire grinned. You know about morale? A little. You in the army? Knox shook his head. No. But I've led missions before. Zaire's eyes widened. For real? Janiyah watched from the stove, arms folded, her heart tight. The boy who rarely opened up to strangers was now explaining warp speed to the man whose DNA ran in his veins. And Knox, cold, guarded Knox, was listening, not nodding for show. Listening. After 40 minutes, Janiyah walked over and said gently, Time to go. Zaire frowned. Already? Knox stood. I'll come again, if that's okay. Zaire looked at Janiyah. She looked at Knox. Same time next Sunday. That became their rhythm. Every Sunday, 10 a.m., rain or shine. Knox never missed. He brought books about space, a Lego set, a mini telescope. He learned what Zaire liked and didn't try to buy his affection. He tried to earn it. They built cardboard rockets in the living room, took walks to the park, played quiet guessing games on the stoop. And every visit, Janiyah watched, studied, waited for signs of arrogance, of entitlement, of retreat. But Knox never raised his voice, never crossed a line. He respected boundaries, and that, more than any gift, softened her. One Sunday afternoon, Knox stayed longer than usual. Zaire had fallen asleep mid-story on the couch. Knox tucked a blanket over him. He stood near the window, hands in his pockets. Janiyah joined him. You're not who I expected you to be, she said softly. He turned to her. Neither are you. She smiled faintly. You still run the company like a machine? He chuckled. Mostly. But I hired a few more humans. A beat. Thank you, she said. He looked surprised. For what? For showing up. Most men don't. Knox's voice lowered. I didn't the first time. I live with that. You were scared. I was selfish. They stood in silence, the weight of unspoken years resting between them. She didn't forgive him. Not yet. But she no longer needed to fight him. And that was its own kind of peace. Knox started staying after Zaire's bedtime. At first, it was small things, helping clean up the Legos, folding a blanket, finishing a conversation that Zaire's chatter had interrupted. Then it became coffee over the tiny kitchen table. Talks that ran long into the evening. They never called it anything. But something was happening. Not fast, not loud, just there. Janiyah noticed the first time Knox washed a dish without being asked. Then the second time, when he brought groceries instead of toys. Then the third, when he gently corrected Zaire without raising his voice. And her son listened. It felt like a slow rewrite of what she thought men like him did. No flash, just presence. Real, steady presence. One night, after Zaire was tucked in and the room had gone quiet, Janiyah poured 2 glasses of ginger tea and handed one to Knox. He took it without a word, sitting across from her. They didn't speak for a while, just sipped, listened to the soft hum of the fridge, the occasional car passing below. Then she asked, "Why didn't you reach out back then?" Knox didn't pretend to misunderstand. His jaw flexed. He set the mug down. I was afraid of what it meant. What meant? You. She looked at him. He continued. You were different. I didn't know how to handle different. I had rules. I had control. I knew how to manage women who wanted things from me. You didn't want anything. That scared me. Jania's voice was calm. So you cut me out. I cut myself off from something real. A beat. Then why didn't you fix it? I told myself it was just a moment, that I imagined it, that I had too much to lose. He looked her in the eye. But when I saw Zaire in that lobby, all those lies fell apart. She didn't respond right away. She was quiet, measuring his words against her pain. Then she said, "He looks like you." Knox smiled softly. "He acts like you." That pulled a breath from her chest she didn't know she'd been holding. The next Sunday, Knox came early. He brought a model rocket kit and helped Zaire build it, piece by piece. They argued over where the fins went, laughed when it fell apart, tried again. Jania leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, heart tight. She hadn't expected this, not from the man who once made her feel so invisible. But now, every time Zaire smiled at him, she wondered if it was okay to believe again. Later that evening, after the rocket had launched from the sidewalk and Zaire had gone to bed early from all the excitement, Knox stayed behind. He lingered near the door. She stood across from him. Neither moved. Then she said it. "Why do you keep coming?" He paused. Then answered, "Because I want to know the boy I never got to hold, and the woman I never really knew." She didn't say yes. She didn't open the door wider, but she didn't close it either. And that was a start. Jania didn't fall easily, not anymore. Life had taught her to test the ground before stepping, to watch what people did, not what they said. So when Knox kept showing up, week after week, hour after hour, she kept score. He didn't bring flowers. He brought stability. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He earned moments of trust. And Zaire? He bloomed. He laughed harder, slept deeper, ran to the door when the buzzer sounded on Sunday mornings. But with every smile her son gave Knox, a small ache grew in her chest. Not because she resented it, but because she feared what would happen if it ever stopped. One rainy afternoon, Zaire got sick. Fever, cough, whimpering in his sleep. Jania stayed up most of the night, pressing cool cloths to his forehead, whispering lullabies, rocking him gently. At 2:30 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Knox, is he okay?" She stared at the screen. How did he know? She hadn't texted him, hadn't updated anything. But the message was there, real, simple, caring. She replied, "Slight fever, won't sleep. I'm holding him now." Knox responded within seconds. "Do you need anything?" She stared again. Not because she needed help, she didn't, but because no one had asked her that in years. Not like that. She typed, "No, thank you." Then, after a long pause, added, "Just keep checking in." He responded with a thumbs up. Then, a second message. "I will, always." Zaire was better by sunrise, still drowsy, but smiling again. Jania made pancakes and told herself not to read into one kind text. But her heart did what hearts do when they remember softness. It hoped. The following Sunday, Knox brought something unexpected. Not a toy, not a book. A form, an invitation to a private school open house. "It's not about status," he explained quickly, noticing her arched brow. "They have a robotics program and a mentorship pipeline for gifted kids in STEM." She said nothing. "They also offer full scholarships based on academic potential." I didn't pull strings. I just asked questions. Her silence stretched. "I'm not trying to change him, Jania. I just want him to have access." Still, she hesitated. "He's only 4. Knox nodded. "I know. I'm just thinking ahead." Later that night, she sat on the couch, watching Zaire sleep, and stared at the form. Was she afraid of change? Or afraid that this, Whatever this parenting, coexisting thing was, might be real enough to lose. The open house was scheduled for the following weekend. Knox offered to drive them. She said yes. That yes felt heavier than she expected. On the drive, Zaire asked questions about the school. Do they have turtles? No idea, Knox said with a smirk. What about snacks? Janiyah laughed. You and snacks. Hey, Zaire pouted. You said growing brains need food. Knox smiled from the driver's seat. Well then, we'll make sure the snacks are up to your standards. Janiyah glanced at him. He was relaxed, warm, not the man who once avoided eye contact in elevators. Something was shifting, and it terrified her. The school was impressive. Clean facilities, passionate teachers, art, hanging everywhere. Kids building miniature bridges in the science wing. Zaire was in awe. Knox stayed quiet, letting Janiyah lead the questions. When she asked about transportation, meal options, and teacher-student ratios, he didn't interrupt. He just stood beside her, as a partner would. And that, somehow, was more intimate than anything they had shared in New York. Back at the apartment, after Zaire had gone down for a nap, Janiyah stood in the kitchen pouring 2 glasses of water. Knox leaned against the wall. She handed him one. You didn't say a word inside. I wanted you to feel in control. She studied him. That's new. He nodded. I'm learning. For a moment, they stood in that small kitchen, her with a glass in hand, him quietly sipping his, and the space between them pulsed. Not with anger, not with tension, with something gentler, like possibility. Janiyah set her glass down and looked up. You've changed. Knox's voice dropped. Not enough. But I'm trying. A pause. Why? His answer was quiet. Because you were the only thing I ever let myself regret. Janiyah didn't answer right away. The word regret sat between them, heavy and thick, like steam. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. Hated how part of her still remembered how it felt to be chosen by him, even if only for a moment. But she hadn't spent the last 4 years fighting for peace just to lose herself in nostalgia. So she stepped back. I don't need confessions, Knox. He didn't move. I know. I don't want apologies every week. You won't get them. She raised an eyebrow. He offered a small smile. I don't apologize with words anymore. That disarmed her more than she wanted to admit. Janiyah turned away, picking up Zaire's tiny hoodie from the armrest and folding it carefully. I'm not easy, she said. I didn't come here looking for easy. I still don't trust you. He nodded. Then I'll earn it. Her hands stilled. Her eyes didn't meet his. That might take years. Then I won't leave. Her breath caught. Silence pressed against the walls of the room. He stepped closer. I don't need you to fall for me, Janiyah. I just need you to stop running when you feel something. She turned slowly. Their eyes locked. It wasn't a movie moment. No swelling music. No slow pan-in. Just 2 people in a quiet room, finally telling the truth. That night, after he left, Janiyah sat in the dark. Zaire's even breathing filled the space. She pressed her hand to her chest. Her heart was still beating fast, not because of fear, but because it was waking up. The following Sunday, Knox arrived early again, this time with nothing in hand, just himself. Zaire greeted him with a tackle and a story about his imaginary space crew. They spent most of the day building a cardboard control panel using markers and paper plates as dials. Janiyah watched, softening around the edges. He wasn't showing up with flash. He was showing up with time. That was louder. Later that evening, after Zaire knocked out from laughter and sugar, Janiyah walked Knox to the door. They paused there, close, too close. Thank you for today, she said. You made it easy. Don't get comfortable. He stepped forward slightly. Noted. His hand brushed hers. Her breath stilled. His fingers grazed her wrist. Gentle, testing. Her eyes fluttered shut, just for a second. Then she stepped back. Don't. He stopped. Her voice was steady. Not yet. Knox nodded, jaw tight. Okay. She opened the door. He stepped out without protest. But before she closed it, he said softly, "I'll wait, as long as it takes." Then he walked away. She leaned against the door for a long time after that. Eyes closed, hand pressed where his fingers had touched. She wasn't ready. But she wasn't untouched either. And that scared her more than anything. Zaire had a way of asking questions at the worst possible time. Not rude, just disarming. Like the day he asked, "Mama, do you think the moon gets lonely?" Right when she was paying the electric bill. Or when he asked, "Do you think I have two daddies?" after watching a cartoon where a boy had a stepdad and a real dad. But nothing compared to the quiet question he dropped that Thursday night while brushing his teeth. "Mama, is Mr. Knox gonna be my forever daddy?" Jania froze, toothbrush in hand, heart in her throat. She bent down slowly and wiped a dab of toothpaste off his chin. "Why do you ask that?" Zaire shrugged, toothpaste foam still on his lip. "He's here a lot, and he listens more than other grown-ups." She sat on the edge of the tub. "Well, Mr. Knox is your real dad. He's not just visiting. He's always going to be your father." "But is he gonna stay?" Zaire asked, like, stay? Or is he gonna go, like, on the cartoons? Jania's voice cracked before she could stop it. "He's trying, baby. And that matters." Zaire nodded, then rinsed. He didn't push, just dried his face and asked if he could read Rocket Boy again before bed. But the question followed her long after his eyelids drooped. That Sunday, Knox brought lunch instead of toys. Sandwiches, grapes, Zaire's favorite juice boxes. They sat on the floor around the coffee table. Zaire babbled about his pretend spaceship mission. Jania listened. Knox laughed in all the right places. But she kept hearing that question in her head. Is he gonna be my forever daddy? It haunted her in the quiet between words. After lunch, Zaire insisted on drawing a comic book with Knox. He sat with his legs crossed, sketching wild, squiggly superhero suits, while Knox helped with speech bubbles and plot twists. Jania stood at the sink, washing dishes, pretending not to watch. But she was watching everything. How Knox didn't correct Zaire's misspellings, just asked, "What does that say?" How he let Zaire lead the story, even when it made no sense. How he handed over the red crayon like it was an award. This wasn't performative. This wasn't a guilt trip. He was just there, not for her approval, for Zaire's heart. And that made something in Jania break open, something she thought she buried years ago. That evening, after Zaire had knocked out on the couch, half covered in crayons and snack, wrappers, Jania tucked him in and returned to find Knox cleaning up the living room. She didn't stop him. She just stood there, watching. He turned, arms full of crayon-covered paper. She walked over and gently took the stack from him, set it on the table. "Why now?" she asked. Knox looked at her. "You're not the type to do anything without reason," she said. "So why now? Why are you really showing up like this?" He didn't flinch. "I missed out on a moment I can't undo," he said. "But I won't let guilt be the reason I stay. I stay because I want to be here. For him. And..." He paused. "For you?" Jania's eyes didn't move. He stepped forward. "I'm not trying to buy my way in, or rush anything. I just want to be present. You think presence is enough?" "No," he said quietly. "But it's the place I should have started." She took a breath. She didn't have the strength to build castles out of hope anymore. But she could admit this much. "You're different now." He nodded. "So are you." "I had to be." They stood in that silence again, the kind only two people who had been broken by the same moment could share. Then he asked, "Can I stay a little longer?" She didn't answer with words. She just turned and walked toward the couch, and he followed, not as a guest, but as something else entirely. The couch still smelled like crayon wax and juice. Zaire's blanket was bunched on the cushion, his comic pages scattered nearby. Jania picked them up and stacked them quietly as Knox sat beside her. The air between them was warm, still, heavy, but not in a way that crushed, in a way that made you pay attention. "You know," she said, "he asked if you were going to be his forever daddy." Knox turned to her. His breath caught. "He said that." She nodded, eyes fixed on the comic in her lap. Knox looked down at his hands. "I don't deserve that kind of hope," he said, "but I'd do anything to be worthy of it." Janiyah finally looked at him. There was no arrogance in his voice, no smooth delivery, just a man stripped down to truth. "I didn't know how to be a father," he continued. "I didn't know how to be a man who stays. But Zaire, he makes me want to learn." A long silence followed. Then she asked, "What about being a man who stays for me?" Knox swallowed hard. "That's harder," he admitted, "because you're not a child who forgives easily. You're a woman who remembers, and I'm allowed to." "You should. I'd worry if you didn't." Janiyah leaned her head back against the cushion. "I don't know how to do this again." He mirrored her posture, their shoulders almost touching. "We don't have to name it," he said. "We don't even have to define it. We just keep showing up, keep listening, keep being honest. You think that's enough?" "No," he said softly. "But it's a better start than what I gave you last time." The room quieted. Their hands rested inches apart. Their breathing fell into sync. Outside, rain tapped gently against the window. Inside, nothing moved, except the truth between them. Janiyah turned toward him. Her voice was soft. "Why'd you kiss me that night?" Knox didn't blink. "Because you were the first thing in years that didn't feel like a transaction." She nodded slowly. "I thought I imagined that you didn't." A pause. "You regretted it?" He didn't speak for a long moment. "I regretted walking away. I never regretted the moment." She didn't move, but she didn't pull away when his hand reached out, slow and tentative, grazing her fingertips. Her skin burned where they touched. Their eyes met. Knox leaned in, slow, careful, waiting. And Janiyah met him halfway. The kiss wasn't desperate. It was quiet, patient, familiar, not like the first time. This wasn't a moment stolen. It was a moment earned. They didn't speak after. They just sat, side by side, breathing in a new chapter neither of them could name yet. But for the first time in 4 years, Janiyah didn't feel like she was protecting herself from him. She felt like she was choosing him, and this time he was choosing her back. Monday morning felt different. Janiyah made her usual tea, helped Zaire pack his little backpack, and checked her client calendar twice. But her thoughts were elsewhere, floating somewhere between the taste of last night, his kiss, and the sound of Knox whispering, "This time, I'm not walking away." She didn't know what they were yet. She wasn't rushing to label it, but something was unfolding, carefully, softly, and for once she didn't feel the need to guard every part of herself. Zaire bounced around the kitchen with a plastic spaceship in hand. "Mama, can I show Mr. Knox my new rocket after school?" "We'll see if he has time today," she said, buttoning his coat. Zaire frowned. "But he always comes." She smiled. "Let's not assume. Grown-ups have work, too." Zaire didn't argue, but the way he looked at the door before leaving said everything. He expected Knox now. Not as a surprise, as part of his life. That truth both warmed and worried her. Knox did show up that evening, with snacks in one hand and a paper bag full of art supplies in the other. Someone said they needed new rocket fuel, he said, as Zaire ran toward him. They spent the next hour making space badges out of construction paper and glitter glue. Knox let Zaire smear glue across his sleeve, pretending not to notice. Janiyah watched it all from the kitchen, arms crossed, heart full. After Zaire went to bed, Knox helped her load the dishwasher, a simple, quiet act that didn't feel like a favor anymore. It felt normal, like something they both belonged to. They sat on the couch again, same side as before, no gap between them now. Janiyah tucked her feet under her, sipping her tea. Knox watched her for a moment, then asked the question he'd clearly been holding in his chest all night. "Do you think Zaire should have my last name?" The question landed hard. She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers tightened around her mug. Knox continued carefully. I know you gave him yours, and I understand why. You did it alone. You raised him. But I'm here now, and I want to be part of his identity, not just his routine. Janaya set the mug down slowly. You think a name will fix what you missed? No, he said. I think a name shows him who he belongs to, that he's part of me too. She looked at him, measured. And what if one day you're not here anymore? What then? Knox's jaw tightened. Then at least he'll know I claimed him. Her throat tightened at that. She hated that it moved her. Because he wasn't wrong. She exhaled. He's old enough to understand. So we ask him. Knox blinked. You'd let him decide? He has a voice. We let him use it. A slow smile tugged at Knox's mouth. You're a better person than me. No, she said. I've just had to be one longer. The next evening they sat Zaire down at the table. He was eating string cheese and reading a comic. Janaya kept her tone light. Zai, can I ask you something important? Is it about chores? He asked, suspicious. Knox smiled. No, it's about your name. My name? Janaya nodded. Right now, your name is Zaire Brooks. That's Mama's last name. But Mr. Knox is your dad and his last name is Vance. Zaire tilted his head. Like, in cartoons when people get married and stuff. Sort of, she said, smiling. We're not getting married, but we're thinking about your name. Knox added, we wanted to ask if you'd ever want to be called Zaire Vance. Zaire thought for a long second, then said, Can I be Zaire Brooks Vance? So it's both? Janaya blinked. Knox smiled slowly. That's a strong name. Zaire nodded. Cool. Now, can I go back to my comic? Janaya choked on a laugh. Yes, baby, go ahead. After he ran off, Knox turned to her. He's better than both of us. Janaya nodded. That's the point. The next Sunday didn't start with glue or giggles. It started with a knock at the door. Not Knox's usual knock. Steady, timed. This one was sharper, louder. Janaya opened the door slowly, Zaire peeking from behind her leg. The woman on the other side was tall, sleek, expensive. Blazer, lashes, subtle perfume. She didn't smile. I'm looking for Knox. Janaya blinked. He's not here. The woman gave a practiced smile. He will be. I texted him. He said he was coming here. Zaire tugged Janaya's hand. Mama? Who's she? Before Janaya could answer, Knox appeared at the bottom of the stairs, steps slowing as he saw the woman. And Janaya saw it immediately. The look in his eyes. Recognition, resignation, history. Knox made it up the steps in 3 strides. Melissa, this isn't the time. Melissa folded her arms. When is the time? I've been patient. You stopped returning my calls, ignored my email, and now you're playing house? Janaya stepped in front of Zaire, her voice calm. Do you want to step outside? I'm not here for drama, Melissa snapped. Knox's voice hardened. Then, leave. Melissa's eyes flicked to Janaya. This her? The assistant? Janaya didn't blink. That's right. Melissa scoffed. Wow, guess you always had a type. Loyal and disposable. Knox's jaw flexed. Don't talk to her like that. I'll talk however I want, Melissa hissed, especially when you disappear without explanation, and then turn up. In a low-rent apartment with a kid that looks exactly like you. That did it. Janaya stepped outside and pulled the door behind her. She faced Melissa directly. You had your moment. It ends here. Melissa raised an eyebrow. You think you matter now? Janaya didn't flinch. I mattered when he walked away. I mattered when I raised a child without help. And I still matter now, even if he never came back. Knox stood behind her. Silent. Still. Janaya turned. Handle this, or don't come back. Then she walked inside and closed the door. Zaire sat cross-legged on the couch. Is she mean? Janaya sat beside him, kissed his head. She's just confused. Did she want to take Mr. Knox away? I don't know, baby. But he doesn't belong to anyone. Zaire nodded. Except me. She smiled. Exactly. Knox returned 20 minutes later. His eyes were red. His tie was gone. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't ask for an apology, she replied. She was someone I kept around because it was easy, he said honestly. We had a pattern. No commitment, no depth. But I ended it before I knew about Zaire. She didn't look like it was over. I didn't look like I was being honest either. That's on me. He sat down. I know what this looks like. I know how fast a moment like that can undo trust. But I swear to you, she's my past. I'm trying to build something with you now. Janiyah stared at him. You need to start telling me what I don't want to hear, not just what sounds good. He nodded. You're right. She crossed her arms. Is there anyone else who might show up next? He shook his head. No. I burned everything else trying to build my career. You're the first person I've come back for. A pause. I'll talk to her formally. Set boundaries. Clean up everything. I don't want her anywhere near you or Zaire again. Janiyah exhaled. Then do it. Don't say it. Knox stood. I will. He kissed Zaire's forehead gently, then kissed her cheek, and left, not with promises, but with a plan. That night, Janiyah lay awake, eyes on the ceiling. She didn't trust fast, but something told her she wouldn't regret giving this man one last chance. Not because he was perfect, but because this time he was choosing truth over comfort. And that was a kind of love she could believe in. Have you ever had someone from your past show up, just when you started to heal? When the person who once hurt you wants back in, but their past follows close behind. What do? Do you protect your peace? Or take the risk on something new, something honest? Drop your answer in the comments. Share your thoughts. Like if this touched your heart. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more emotional, powerful love stories with real-life lessons. Your support helps bring these stories to life, and we're just getting started. Knox didn't return for 3 days. Janiyah didn't text. She didn't call. She didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to hear answers to. She cooked meals, managed her clients, walked Zaire to school and back, all while quietly preparing her heart for silence. But the silence didn't last. It ended Wednesday morning, with a knock. She opened the door to find Knox standing there, dressed down in jeans and a navy pullover, holding a thick white envelope and a weary expression. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Zaire was still at school. The apartment was quiet, sun streaking across the couch. Knox sat slowly, like his legs carried something heavy. I spoke to Melissa, he said. Formally, clearly. Without a second of doubt, Janiyah raised an eyebrow. And? She won't come near us again. Not you. Not Zaire. I've filed legal documentation, had my lawyer put it in writing, restraining clause attached to my public image rights. If she violates it, she's done. Janiyah blinked. That's intense. She made a scene in front of my son. Janiyah's chest tightened at the word my. Not your, my. She didn't interrupt. She tried to spin it like I led her on. I didn't argue. I didn't excuse anything. I told her the truth. I've been selfish with women. And she's part of that. He placed the envelope on the table. This is the written notice. You can keep it. Janiyah picked it up slowly, opened it, skimmed the legal jargon. Everything he said was real. Official. Bound. No performance. No manipulation. Just action. She looked at him. Knox ran a hand over his face. You didn't ask me to do this. But I wanted you to know that protecting you is my choice now. Her eyes softened. You didn't have to, but I did. Because the last time I left things unspoken, you disappeared. And I lost years of my son's life. Janiyah sat beside him, the envelope still in her hand. What do you want from me, Knox? He turned to her, serious. Time. To prove what? He paused. That I'm done being the kind of man who watches good things walk away. Zaire burst in from school that afternoon with glitter on his face and excitement in his voice. "Mr. Knox, I drew you in art class." Knox smiled, crouching. "Really? Did I have a cape?" "No," Zaire grinned. "You had a calculator. You were super budget, Dad." Janaya laughed from the kitchen. "He's been obsessed with superheroes who manage money." Knox chuckled. "That's the most realistic hero there is." Zaire launched into a detailed explanation of his drawing, his face animated. Knox listened, fully present, fully focused, like Zaire was presenting a business pitch that could change the world. Janaya watched from the doorway. For the first time in years, she felt steady, like she didn't have to brace herself for loss. That night, after Zaire went to bed, Janaya walked out onto the balcony. The evening breeze carried traces of lavender from the neighbor's window box. Knox joined her, hands in his pockets. They stood shoulder to shoulder in silence. Then he said, "I filed paperwork today." She turned to him. "For what?" "Zaire. Official recognition. I'm not coming after custody. I'm not trying to force my name onto anything. I'm just acknowledging him. Publicly, legally, the way I should have from the beginning." Janaya didn't know what to say. So she didn't say anything. She just reached out and took his hand. And this time, she didn't let go. By the end of the week, everything had started to shift. Not loudly, but deeply. Zaire didn't ask if Knox was coming anymore. He just set out an extra plate. Janaya didn't brace when the buzzer rang. She opened the door with calm hands and soft eyes. And Knox. He stopped acting like a guest. He picked Zaire up from school twice that week, helped with a Lego disaster after dinner, even took a shift reading bedtime stories so Janaya could rest for once. But it wasn't the routines that changed her. It was the way he listened. Like every word she said held weight. Like every opinion she had was necessary. And after so many years of doing everything alone, being seen felt revolutionary. On Friday evening, Zaire came out of his room wearing one of Knox's t-shirts like a cape. "I'm businessman. I fight evil spreadsheets." Knox laughed. "Those are dangerous villains." Zaire struck a pose. "But I have balance sheets of justice." Janaya was doubled over in the kitchen, trying not to spill the rice she was dishing up. Knox caught her eye and grinned. It wasn't a flirtatious grin. It was something warmer. Something real. And she didn't look away. Dinner was simple. Rice, baked chicken, roasted carrots. The kind of meal that had fed generations. But to Janaya, it tasted like normal. The kind she hadn't had since before Knox erased her. They ate at the small table, knees bumping. Zaire talking through mouthfuls. And when Knox offered to do dishes, she let him. Not because she needed help, but because it felt good to let someone share the weight. Later that night, after Zaire had fallen asleep on the couch mid-cartoon marathon, Janaya sat beside Knox in the glow of the TV. She leaned against his shoulder, not tense, not cautious, at ease. Knox rested his head gently against hers. "Remember when we first met?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "You wore that oversized grey blazer. You barely looked up during the interview." She chuckled. "It was my cousin's. 2 sizes too big. You didn't smile once. I was scared. I couldn't tell. You looked like you owned the building." She laughed under her breath. "I felt like a fraud." Knox turned to her. "You weren't. You never were." They sat in the quiet hum of the night. Her voice softened. "I used to wonder if that night in New York meant anything to you." He responded without hesitation. "It did. Too much." She looked up. "Then why did you throw me away?" He exhaled. "Because I didn't believe I was the kind of man someone like you could love. So I destroyed it before I could see it grow." That answer unraveled something inside her, not in anger, but in understanding. "You hurt me," she said. "I know. I still remember what it felt like to pack my desk, alone. I still remember what it felt like to watch you leave, and do nothing." They were past blame now. This was about reckoning. and rebalance. She touched his hand. He turned it over. Their fingers locked. No big speech. No sweeping promises. Just presence. Knox stayed the night. He slept on the couch. No negotiation. But when she brought him a blanket, he caught her hand. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I think I might be," she said. He leaned in, kissed the back of her hand, then let go. The next morning, Zaire woke up to find his dad on the couch, snoring softly, legs too long for the cushion. He tiptoed into the kitchen. "Mama." Janiyah turned, sipping her tea. Zaire grinned. "Can we keep him?" She laughed. "He's not a puppy, baby." Zaire tilted his head. "But he fits in." She paused, then smiled. "Yeah, he kind of does." The rhythm of their days changed. Subtly, then all at once. Knox no longer waited for invitations. He came by after work, picked Zaire up from school when Janiyah was swamped. Stayed for dinner more nights than not. It wasn't about grand gestures anymore. It was the unspoken way he folded laundry without being asked. The way he remembered Janiyah's coffee exactly how she liked it. 1 sugar, almond milk, extra hot. The way he memorized Zaire's bedtime stories and did the voices better each time. It was comfort, but it was also closeness. And closeness has a way of revealing things. One evening, as Zaire colored in the corner and Knox and Janiyah cleaned up dinner, she turned to him and asked, "Are you happy?" He blinked. "Right now?" "No," she said. "In your life." Knox set down the plate he was rinsing. "I used to think I was. But I was just successful, not happy. And now? I'm still learning what happy feels like." She dried a fork. "You're here almost every night." "I know." "You don't talk about your condo anymore." "I know." "You sleep better here?" He met her gaze. "I do." She didn't smile, but something softened in her eyes. "You thinking about staying?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, close enough to feel her breath, close enough for Zaire to glance up and pause his crayon mid-stroke. Knox said, "I'm thinking about more than just staying." And then he went back to the dishes. Later that night, after Zaire fell asleep with marker on his cheek, Knox sat with Janiyah on the fire escape. The spring air was warm. The stars hid behind city glow. He handed her a folded piece of paper. She opened it. Inside, a drawing Zaire had made that morning. The 3 of them, holding hands, standing under a rocket ship. She traced the tiny triangle heads. "I asked him who the people were," Knox said. He said, "That's me. That's Mama. That's my best friend." Janiyah smiled. "That's cute." Knox looked at her. "I want to be more than his best friend." She stilled. He wasn't proposing. Not with a ring. Not with a speech. But his voice had weight. "I want to build something real," he said. "With you. With him. Not out of guilt. Not because it's neat or clean or perfect, but because I can't see my life without it." Janiyah held the paper tighter. "He's my whole world," she said softly. "I know. I don't play about him. I know that too." Her eyes shimmered. "And what if this doesn't work?" Knox leaned in. "Then I'll still show up. Every morning, every game, every spelling test, even if I have to do it from the hallway." She laughed through her tears. "You'd really stand in the hallway?" "If that's where you needed me." Janiyah didn't say yes, not out loud, but she leaned in, head on his shoulder, fingers brushing his knee. And in that quiet moment, she finally let go of the last wall she'd been holding. 2 weeks passed, and the rhythm between them deepened. Knox had quietly started spending the night, on the couch at first. Then, one evening, after Zaire crawled into Janiyah's bed during a thunderstorm, she simply looked at Knox and said, "There's room." They didn't rush, no fireworks, no dramatic declarations, but intimacy bloomed in quiet ways. The way he adjusted the covers around her, the way her back instinctively fit against his chest, the way their hands found each other beneath the sheets. laced, warm, steady. It was real, and it terrified Janaya. One morning, after dropping Zaya off at school, she stopped by her old job at the clinic. Dr. Linton welcomed her with a hug. "You look different," he said. "Peaceful. Or maybe loved." She smiled, but the words struck something inside her. Was she truly loved? Or was Knox simply trying to make things right? That night, Janaya sat on the fire escape again, staring into the soft city haze. Knox joined her, holding 2 mugs of tea. He handed one over. "You okay?" "I've been thinking," she said. He waited. She sipped her tea. "When I found out I was pregnant," she began, "I didn't hate you. I was hurt, confused, but not angry." Knox leaned forward. "But the part that shattered me," she continued, "was knowing you didn't even give me space to speak. You made a decision about me without asking me anything." Knox's voice was low. "I was scared. I know. But you ran from a life you helped create." He nodded. "I regret it every day." Janaya placed the mug down. "Knox, if we're doing this, if you really want to build something with me and Zaire, I need to know this isn't redemption. I need to know you love us, not the guilt." Knox turned toward her fully. "Janaya," he said, "I didn't fall for you out of guilt. I didn't show up for him because I had to. I'm here because you're the piece I never knew I needed." She blinked. He continued, voice steadier now. "Do I carry guilt? Yes. But I also carry love, real love. The kind that doesn't ask to be earned, just proven daily." He reached into his coat pocket. Not a ring. Not yet. Just a key. He placed it in her hand. "To my condo," he said, "in case you ever want the space. The choice. I won't pressure you, but I'll always want you with me." Janaya stared at the key. This wasn't a proposal. It was deeper. It was freedom. She looked up at him. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything. What kind of father do you want to be?" Knox didn't blink. The kind who shows up, listens, apologizes when he's wrong, and makes sure his son never has to wonder if he's loved. She took his hand. "And the kind of partner?" Knox exhaled. "The kind who protects your peace, respects your strength, and never lets you forget how much you matter." Silence. Then she whispered, "Okay." And that was enough. Inside, Zaire stirred in his sleep. A drawing lay beside him. Another rocket, this time with 4 people. Himself, his mom, his best friend, and a new baby floating in space. Janaya hadn't seen it yet. Neither had Knox. But that little drawing would soon become part of the biggest decision of their lives. Because love was here now. But so was the possibility of more. Janaya hadn't been to the clinic in weeks, but she found herself back in the familiar hallway, clutching a thin envelope with her name on it. The nurse at the front desk smiled. "Dr. Abel said you'd want a copy of the blood work." She nodded, heart thudding. "Thanks." As she stepped out into the parking lot, the sun felt too bright, the city too loud. Everything around her was ordinary, but nothing in her life was anymore. She slid into her car, locked the doors, and opened the envelope. 2 pink lines, and next to them, 1 word, positive. Pregnant. Again, her mind raced, flashing back to the last few weeks. The late-to-night cravings, the unexplained nausea, the soreness. She had brushed it off. Life was stressful. Zaire had started first grade. Knox was around more. They were adjusting. But now this? She looked down at the result again, stomach tightening. Another baby. Knox's baby. But this time, they weren't strangers. This time, they had history, love, trust, pain, and a little boy upstairs who might not understand what this meant. She didn't tell Knox that night. Instead, she sat beside him on the couch, watching a documentary about space exploration. Zaire was asleep. The apartment was quiet. Knox reached for her hand. "You've been quiet," he said. "I'm just tired." "You sure that's all?" She hesitated. For a moment she thought about telling him, but the words wouldn't form. How could she drop another life-altering truth on him so soon? Not yet. She leaned into him. Yeah, just tired. He kissed her temple and pulled her closer. And for the first time in weeks, she felt the weight of a secret pressed down on her chest. The next morning, she dropped Zaire at school and drove straight to the lakefront. Her fingers tapped anxiously on the steering wheel. She pulled out her phone and called the one person who knew her better than anyone else, her Aunt Celeste. "Hey, sweetheart. Everything okay?" Jania's voice wavered. "I'm pregnant." Silence on the line. "Again?" Celeste finally said, carefully. "Yeah." "Does Knox know?" "No. I'm still trying to figure out how to tell him." Celeste didn't scold. She never did. Instead, she asked gently, "Do you want this baby?" Jania closed her eyes. "I think I do, but I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of repeating everything. Of loving someone who might leave again. Of doing it alone." Celeste's voice softened. "You're not the same girl who was left the first time. You're wiser now, stronger, and if you choose this child, it'll be from love, not fear." Jania blinked back tears. What if Knox runs again? Then he was never meant to stay. But if he's the man he says he is now, he'll prove it. That evening, Knox made dinner. He wasn't a chef by any means, but he tried. Jania watched him from the doorway, apron on backward, spaghetti sauce bubbling over. "You're burning the garlic," she said. "I am?" He scrambled. "Why didn't you say something?" She laughed. "I wanted to see how long you'd pretend you had it under control." He gave her a sheepish smile. "Guilty." Jania stepped in and turned off the stove, scooping the garlic into a separate dish. Knox looked at her carefully. "You're glowing tonight." She paused. He stepped closer. "What is it?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I'm pregnant." The silence hit like thunder. Knox stared at her, frozen. She rushed to fill the gap. "I didn't plan it. I only found out this week. I've been trying to process it." Still, he didn't speak. Jania stepped back, hurt prickling. "I didn't keep it from you to hide it. I just needed a moment." Finally, he whispered, "You're sure?" She nodded. "And you're okay with it?" Her voice cracked. "I think I am, but only if you are too." Knox walked to the sink, bracing himself against the counter. Then, without a word, he turned around, crossed the kitchen, and wrapped his arms around her. Tight, unwavering. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you for telling me. And for letting me be here this time." She breathed in his scent. Warm. Safe. Real. "I want to do this right," he said. "Whatever you need, I'll give it. You won't carry this alone." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I believe you." They stood in silence, and in that moment, with sauce on the stove, garlic in a bowl, and a life inside her, she finally let go of every fear she had carried. Because this time, love stayed. Knox stared at the crib they'd once borrowed for Zaire. It was folded in storage, still in the hallway closet. Quiet, untouched. He dragged it out gently, brushing off the dust. Assembling it wasn't hard. But what struck him was how different he felt doing it this time. Before, he hadn't been there. Now, he was. Each screw he twisted in, each latch he secured, felt like an oath. "I'm staying." From the hallway, Jania watched him. Arms crossed over her belly, a quiet awe in her eyes. "You don't have to do that tonight," she said softly. He looked up. "I want to." She stepped in. "Let me help." "No," he said. "Let me show you something." She tilted her head, curious. Knox walked over to his backpack on the floor and pulled out a small box. Not a ring, not a necklace, but a key. He handed it to her. She frowned. "What's this?" "My apartment. It's yours now, too." Her throat tightened. "You're serious?" "Jania, I've spent years trying to rewrite how we started. This time, I want to get it right from the foundation, not because of a baby, not out of guilt, but because I love you." I love Zaire. And now, he touched her belly gently, I love this little one too. She looked down at the key, then at him. Then let's do it together, she whispered. He nodded. No more secrets, no more distance. They didn't rush into a wedding. They didn't stage a grand proposal. Instead, they moved in together, quietly, lovingly. Zaire was the first to notice the changes. Why's Daddy staying every night now? He asked one morning, rubbing his eyes. Janaya knelt beside him. Because we're building a home. Together. Zaire blinked. Like other kids at school? She smiled. Like the home you deserve. He smiled. Can we get a puppy? Knox groaned from the kitchen. Let's start with breakfast. The pregnancy brought its challenges. Morning sickness. Fatigue. Emotions that swung wildly. But Knox stayed through it all. He attended doctor's appointments. He read parenting blogs at midnight. He even took Zaire to his soccer games so Janaya could rest. One afternoon, as they walked out of a prenatal appointment, Knox held her hand. Do you think they'll look like you? She chuckled. I hope so. But I hope they get your ears. He looked mock offended. What's wrong with my ears? Nothing, she teased. They're just loud. They both laughed. It was the kind of laughter they didn't have in their first chapter. The kind that comes when love isn't rushed, but earned. One Saturday, while Knox was grocery shopping with Zaire, Janaya sat at the kitchen table, a journal open in front of her. She started writing a letter. To my child, I didn't expect you. Not because I didn't want you, but because I didn't think life would give me a second chance like this. You're coming into a world that hurt me once, then healed me twice. The man who helped create you wasn't always kind, but today he's patient, present, soft in ways I never thought possible. Your brother is loud, loving, and fiercely protective. I know he'll adore you. As for me, I'm still learning how to forgive, how to let love in again, how to build without fear. But what I do know is this: you were made in love, and you are already loved beyond words. When you're older, I'll tell you everything. But for now, just know, you saved something in me, and I promise, I'll spend the rest of my life protecting everything in you. Love, your mother. She closed the journal and pressed her hand to her belly. A flutter. She smiled. You heard that, didn't you? The baby came early. A stormy night. Contractions that hit fast. Knox barely made it in time, speeding through red lights and praying under his breath. When he rushed into the hospital room, Janaya was already pushing. I'm here, he cried. She screamed. Took you long enough. Even in pain, she was still herself. And when the baby finally arrived, a girl with her mother's full lips and her father's stubborn frown, Knox cried harder than he ever had. It's a girl, the nurse said gently. Knox turned to Janaya. You did it. No, she whispered. We did. They named her Nova, because after darkness, she was light. Zaire held her the next morning, arms trembling with care. She's squishy, he said. Janaya laughed. So were you. He kissed Nova's forehead. I'll protect her. Knox reached over and wrapped them both in a hug. We all will. 3 months later, they hosted a small gathering. Just family. Close friends. No tuxedos. No ball gowns. Just two people standing in the backyard surrounded by people who'd seen them grow and fall and choose each other again. Knox held Janaya's hand. I didn't get it right the first time, he said. But I'm here now, and I'm never leaving again. Janaya looked at him, heart full. You once said you weren't ready to be a father. Now you're the kind of man I prayed my children would have. They didn't sign vows with microphones or speeches. They whispered them, hand over hand, heart to heart, because love wasn't loud for them. It was steady, quiet, real. What would you do? If someone you loved failed you once, but came back changed, would you give them a second chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Share it with someone who believes in second chances. And if you want more emotional, real-life stories with powerful life lessons, subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories right now. Every view, like, and comment helps us keep telling stories that matter. See you in the next one. Stay inspired.